Hello, it's Philip Carr-Gomm. It's Tea with the Druid, number 105, and it's lovely to see you here. Do say when you have arrived and tell us where you're from, because it's always fascinating to see the different countries that people come from. It's just lovely to see names from all over the world. So I'm going to begin. I can see already people are arriving, and Lawrence, you must be from the Netherlands, I guess. Julia from Liverpool, and Vivian from North Germany. Fantastic, from the Netherlands. Yeah, that's great. And Joe Swanson, weren't you the leader of the Liberal Party? Lib Dems? Good heavens. You've gone up. Where are you? Oh, no, sorry. Joe Someday Swanson from Minnesota. Okay. Adi from New Zealand. Hi. Cassandra from Switzerland. Great. Lovely to see everybody here. Well, it's happened. You can see here this lovely picture from the front page of the papers. It's rather lovely being in Britain and going into the supermarket and seeing your newspapers displayed. On the front is an image of some happy people at Stonehenge for the solstice. And of course, the interesting thing is that what we've all been waiting for, which is the turning of the year, the emerging out of the dark point, which has such resonance for us in our own personal lives and in the life of the world, really, in the wider political and environmental sphere. We feel ourselves going into the darkness and we yearn to come back to the light. And the event has already occurred. It occurred on Sunday. The days are gained in the Northern Hemisphere. In the Southern Hemisphere, it was the summer solstice, of course, but in the Northern Hemisphere, it means the days are going to start getting longer. But for most people in this culture, of course, the big events haven't begun yet. It's great to see the image of the solstice on the front page there. But for most people, of course, it's Christmas coming up in a couple of days' time, and then it's New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day. But the point is the turning has already occurred. The change occurred on Sunday. And Christmas and New Year, so the big events that are coming up, are kind of echoes, are cultural events, religious events, cultural events that are based on something that's already occurred. And as Druids, we like to go to the source. We like to tune into the actual moment. We're scientists. We want to go for the scientific moment of the solstice, and that's when we can feel the rebirth of the year. And there's an interesting point in that, I think, which is that you can't change the astronomical facts, but you can change the cultural response to the astronomical facts. One way you can change it is to celebrate the solstice, for instance. So you shift some of the focus of your attention to that point. But there's another very practical detail that I'd like to share with you that we've used in our family for the last 30 years, which is that, you know, the kind of stress that Christmas can bring. People talk about it often, about how they feel obliged to make that one day really special, and the kind of conflicts and difficulties within a family can tend to come out. Everybody's worried about the uncle who drinks too much, or the tension between the mother-in-law and the other person, and all the rest of it. And a lot of people say that Christmas Day is very stressful as a result of it. In my personal situation, because I've had two marriages, there was always this difficulty about children, access to children over the Christmas period. You know, which parent is going to have the privilege of Christmas Day with their child? And what we realized really early on was that we had this option to have a second day of celebration, the Solstice Day, which was a few days apart. And that just relieved the stress because it was no longer a problem. It's like we would have what we call Druid Christmas for the children on the solstice, and then the other Christmas a few days later. So that the kids, in fact, got a double dose of fun. That's an idea, I think, that can be really shared. It's hugely helpful, I think, to take away that stress on one day having to be great. You can have 2 days. I've been working a lot the last few months on a course working with the tarot, transformation with the tarot. And I know some of you are probably doing it, and it's lovely to see your comments on it and how helpful it is. And the solstice is the time of rebirth, which is depicted in this card there, the Mabon, in the Christian tradition, the Christ child being reborn. And you see we've got New Grange there with its famous box that lets in the first shaft of the midwinter sun, to signify the time of the rebirth of the year. And the idea is that if you get this card in a reading, it's auspicious because it signifies rebirth, and it represents this archetypal force of rebirth. Why, you might say, why a naked boy? That's kind of strange. Well, we're taking it because the Druid craft deck is a Rider-Waite clone. We're taking the Sunchild figure from the Rider-Waite card, who's sitting on his horse. And this is how Will Worthington in our deck created the same image like that. This idea of the sun coming, the horse is a really interesting symbol of being in contact with the other world. So this solar force of your inner sun, your inner Mabon, your inner Christ child, if you like, your inner solar being, coming through and then being reborn in the next card here. And in the Rider-Waite card, you have the more slightly gloomier image of judgment, but the soul's being reborn on the last day of judgment. So you see how we took the trumpet and turned it into the Dord, the Druid symbol, the Celtic Bronze Age trumpet, one of which was found just near here in Sussex. And we have a replica that we play at the Order events. And the idea of the trumpet sounding and you wake up. And so on the Tump in Lewis, there are about 60 or 70 people on the little hill down the road on Sunday for the solstice event. And we made a real racket, blowing trumpets and banging drums and so on, signifying this waking up. So it's rather nice, I feel, when you kind of really get this idea that the year has been reborn. And from Sunday, where are we today? Monday. From yesterday, you can really tune into the fact that you're starting to go into the new year, and you can feel the little seeds inside you starting to just feel the very first touches of the sun until we get to Imbolc. So in about a month's time, 6 weeks' time, we'll get to February the 1st, and our seeds can start to get that early spring sunshine, and will blossom in the springtime. Let's really give ourselves the luxury of tuning into this time. Joe Swanson, again, my Sunday Swanson. My solstice was me time, and now I get to spend family Christmas time. That's a nice way of looking at it as well. When you work with both, or when you celebrate both, you can use the solstice. Thank you, Joe. You can use the solstice as your personal sort of spiritual time of opening to that energy of rebirth and celebration. And then a few days later, you can have the more boisterous social time with the family. Yes, lots of lovely comments coming in. That's great. And then Adi is talking about Christmas in New Zealand, which is always a very strange experience because it's in the middle of summer. And yes, people run around trying to do mad things in the heat. Yes, it's in on the other side of the world. When you celebrate Christmas in the middle of summer, it feels very odd indeed. That's when you realize how it's complete, how these festivals are so linked to the seasons. I was listening this evening to Radio 4 have a program, the Museum of Curiosities, and they had J.K. Rowling talking, and it was very interesting. And she, at the end of the program, each person who's being interviewed is invited to make a donation, metaphorically, as it were, symbolically, to this virtual Museum of Curiosities. And J.K. Rowling said that her donation would be inspiration. She'd like inspiration to be available in the museum. And then she started talking about inspiration. It was so interesting because she said she's endlessly fascinated by hearing about inspiration, about how writers seek inspiration, what people think about inspiration, the way we try to get it. And of course, this is huge in Druidry. It's a central feature of Druidry. And I think that's why it attracts so many creative people interested in working on their creativity, because we're really interested in inspiration. And so we have this concept of Arwen, which is inspiration. And she then started to talk about how somebody asked her, how do you get inspiration? And I got very excited when I heard her say, she said, I imagine that I'm walking through a forest and the trees are like my thoughts. They're the kind of clutter in my mind. That's an interesting idea. I hadn't kind of thought of things in that way, but it's an interesting idea. You can sort of use that. I can see how you could use the imagining walking in a forest and all the trees are your thoughts. And then she came, and I thought she was going to say, and I come into a sacred grove, but she didn't quite say that. And she didn't say, I come into a clearing in the forest. She said, I come to a lake. So it's a clearing, and there's within there aren't any trees growing in the lake, so it's clear, and there's a lake there. And she said that's where the inspiration comes from. And there's a little hut, a little shed by the lake. And by being by the lake, she doesn't fish in it, she doesn't plunge into the lake, she walks beside it. And that's how she gets her inspiration. So that's a lovely image of, the cauldron, of the grail, of the waters of inspiration. And we know in the Celtic tradition, water sources were hugely important. And the well and the lake and the spring, hugely significant images connecting to the other world. And she said she saw it as her unconscious. And then she goes into her shed and she works on the inspiration she's received. And she said that she's been using this technique and this imagery for so long that she now knows when she looks at a piece of work, either her own or somebody else's, she goes, oh, too much shed or too much lake. So if she overworks an inspiration, an idea she gets, if she overworks it, she says, oh, I've got too much shed in there. If there's a disproportionate amount of inspiration and she hasn't fashioned and crafted it enough, she says too much shed. So that's so similar to the Druid idea, I think, of having a little bothy. Sometimes in our meditations, we will imagine that we have a little place within our grove, a little hut or a little bothy, a little roundhouse maybe, where we can go and sit and dream and sleep and feel safe and cozy, and there can be a little fire burning. So I'm going to suggest that we do that. I'm going to suggest now that we just have a short meditation where we walk through the forest. And as we walk, we can imagine that we're just getting closer and closer to the heart of ourselves, to the heart of all being. And when we get to the clearing, you can imagine it how you wish. Maybe you'll see a lake, maybe you'll see a little pond, little fire, or just your sacred grove, your clearing. And then let's go to a little bothy. Let's have a little shelter, a little roundhouse perhaps, and go inside and just sit quietly enjoying the darkness in the bothy for a moment. And then deliberately and consciously, let's walk to the entrance of the bothy, like the child in the tarot card, and let's imagine the sun has risen and we walk out into the sun and just feel blessed by the sunshine. And then we'll come back to our current awareness. So if you're up for that, let's do that now. Let's just take a little while to become aware of being seated here, comfortable in however we're looking at our screens. I'm going to occasionally open my eyes just to make sure I still have the internet connection with you, but you might like to close your eyes to better concentrate on yourself. And then just allow your awareness of being seated, looking at your screen to fade as you start to become aware of walking through the forest. And it's before dusk, it's kind of nighttime, the stars are out, and you're walking, but you can see clearly, the moon's out, and you can see clearly, and you're walking through the forest. And as you walk through the forest, you really get a sense that maybe these trees are like all the things in your life that you're connected with and that you love, but that you want to go to a place of peace and clarity and stillness within. And so you're walking through the woods on the path that leads to a clearing, to a sacred grove. And as you come out through the woods, you feel the way the air changes, and you see that there's a sweet little roundhouse. There's a little roundhouse just in one part of the clearing. And you walk around it. It's possible that you walk clockwise, sunwise, around the clearing, feeling the soft leaves that have fallen on the ground, smelling the trees, smelling the earth. And then coming to this little bothy. And you just pause at the entrance, and if it feels right, you step inside. You probably have to lower your head a little bit. And there's this wonderful conical roof on it. And you go inside, and it's warm in here. And you sit on the ground, and you realize it's dry ground. The ground is dry, but it's just the bare earth. You put your palms on the earth to either side of you when you sit down, and you can feel the earth. And you can feel the age of this earth beneath you. And you feel how grounding and stabilizing it is. It's as if you can just let all your worries and concerns drift down into the earth. And as you breathe in the energy of the earth. And you feel this calm, healing energy flowing through your body, flowing through your energy field. And you feel the darkness of the clearing, of being in the bothy. And you know that darkness is the fosterer of splendor. It's as if you have your own night sky inside you. And in all this delicious velvety darkness, there might be sparkles of light like the stars. And then you open your inner eyes and you see the entrance of the bothy. And you see the light starting to change. And you realize that the night has turned to dusk, and dusk is turning to dawn. And you feel drawn to step outside And as you step outside, the first rays of the morning sun shine down onto you as you step out of the bothy. And you stand up and you receive these rays of the sun, knowing that a new day has begun. And you feel the warmth and the light of the sun within you, within every cell of your being. And you know that a new year has begun too. May this new year be filled with light, be filled with joy, be filled with peace, with healing, with creativity, with unfolding, and with a deep happiness. And feeling yourself filled with sunshine and energy. You see yourself walking back. Maybe you're following the steps that you took around the circle. You glance back at the bothy and the clearing, knowing you can return at any time. And you walk back through the forest now, which is filled with the sounds of birds, with shafts of sunlight. And you breathe in deeply. And as you breathe in deeply, your awareness of the forest begins to fade. As you become aware of being seated here, facing your screen, fully conscious, fully present, here and now. And when you feel ready, you stretch your fingers and toes and open your eyes. And so, may your new year be filled with joy, and may the coming time be one of great happiness for you. And it's lovely to see everybody here, and it's lovely to be celebrating with you. It feels like a little kind of miniature celebration of the solstice, the day after it occurred astronomically yesterday, with you all. So that's great. So have a great Christmas and New Year celebration. And I'll just come back to the point that I made at the beginning, that we can't change astronomical facts, but we can change our cultural response to them, so that we don't have to go into the kind of consumer-driven craziness of Christmas, for instance. That's changing our cultural response, and a lot of people are doing that. And even New Year's Day, a long time ago, Stephanie and I decided we found New Year's Eve parties kind of unsatisfactory. Sometimes they worked, but often somehow the tremendous kind of load of expectation placed on them for that evening, and then all the drinking that occurred and everything, it didn't quite kind of work for us. So years and years ago, we decided to create a different tradition. And so we invited everybody we knew on a long walk, I mean, a really long walk on New Year's Day, followed by a party. So we all meet at noon, we walk for 3 or 4 hours, and then we have at 4 o'clock, we just have masses of food, and we have a lovely party that goes on into the evening. And we've been doing that for 20 years. And so we don't need to do a kind of late night drinking party on the night before, because we want to be healthy and ready for the next day. And it's just a great way to begin the new year. So I think that's the empowering fact about these things, is that we can fashion our own responses to these festivals in a creative way that suits our temperaments and our lifestyles. So much love to you all, and see you again. I look forward to reading your comments, and see you all next Monday. Okay, bye.